Hi. In today's hectic business environment, communication is vitally important, and technology has enabled us to communicate in less time and in more ways than ever before. Aside from plain old fashioned letters or face to face meetings, we communicate every day by telephones, cell phones, text messages, fax machines, email, or video conferences, just to name a few. So let me ask you, do you often communicate with colleagues or customers via teleconferences or webinars? If so, then maybe you or your organization have had experiences similar to many of the people we've spoken with who find teleconferences to be a frustrating, annoying experience. Or maybe, like some others, a dull and boring necessary evil. In fact, a recent study revealed the amazing statistic that in U.S. businesses, over 90% of the people surveyed said that they had either fallen asleep during a teleconference or that they regularly zone out and begin working on other tasks instead of participating in the session. Does this sound familiar? If so, we have good news. Here are 5 simple steps that will help you run the best teleconferences. But beware, while these steps are simple, they're not necessarily easy. However, if you would like to run more enjoyable, productive teleconferences in which people are more engaged and in which the attendees actively participate, then you're sure to find these tips helpful. Step 1 involves a slight variation in how we prepare ourselves to run the best teleconference. Just like any meeting, we must be prepared with a purpose and an agenda. But there's a twist. And if you're asking yourself what that twist might be, if you're wondering what is it that if done differently, it will result in a more interactive, engaging teleconference, then you are in fact engaging in the practice as we speak. Yes, that's right. The twist is that when creating our personal notes and our personal copy of the teleconference agenda, we put an equal amount of effort into listing the things that we will ask as well as the things that we will say. In other words, we'll focus on questions, preferably open-ended questions which can't be answered with a simple yes or no answer, and which will promote interaction during the teleconference. When people prepare to run meetings, they often write down their speaking points, but in this instance, we're writing down questions as well. Next, we should come prepared with a special roll call sheet so we can accomplish 3 things. First, it's important to know who was on the call. So, we'll create a sheet that will allow us to list each participant's name and also a spot to indicate that they are present. But most importantly, we must use the sheet to make notations each time we directly interact with each participant and to document key comments or ideas shared by each. Step 3 is to begin each meeting with a statement of purpose and decorum. By reminding people of the session's objectives and also of a few fundamentals, we can improve the overall experience for everyone. Decorum issues might include avoiding the mute button, since people tend to forget it has been activated, and while they think they're answering our questions, no one else can hear them. What we refer to as hold button sabotage is another pitfall. If people need to step away from the call, they can unwittingly compromise everyone's experience by putting the call on hold. As in many cases, the rest of the group is subjected to the company muzak or maybe to a commercial message that comes across at a decibel level far beyond the norm. Naturally, these items will vary depending on the purpose of the meeting. Step 4 involves using the roll call sheet throughout the session as the meeting leader directs questions to individuals rather than to the group. Consider that while it's perfectly fine in a conference room setting for the meeting leader to look up at the group and say, "Does anyone have any questions?" On a conference call, this is a problem, because if questions are directed to the entire group, nobody knows who should speak first, because of course there's no visual contact. So, we either speak on top of one another, or, equally as unpleasant, no one speaks at all. So instead, the teleconference leader must direct questions to individuals. So, Mary, I'd like to hear more about your thoughts on how we can complete the project in only 2 weeks. Bill, how should we get started? It's suggested that when posing questions in this fashion, the leader do so in random order. In other words, we should not go down the list from top to bottom and then start over again, as people will quickly realize the pattern and might not be as alert. If instead the questions are directed to people in random order, the group tends to pay much closer attention to the conversation. Of course, this requires that the leader makes notations on the roll call sheet each time a question is directed to an individual, and also makes notations as to what people are saying in response. As the session progresses, the leader can further engage people by referring back to things that maybe they'd said earlier. So, as Mary said earlier, we can hire a consultant to help with the project. The fifth step for running the best teleconference is to end the session effectively. Some say we should end with the beginning by restating the session's objectives. Then we can summarize the discussion, draw consensus, and both identify and gain commitments for clear next steps, which should then maybe be distributed by email. Teleconferences are simply meetings that cost less to run and that can be organized more easily. However, while the technology to accomplish these things has steadily progressed, it's still all about connecting with people.